And you're live on PM Express and on the JoyNews channel. In fact, in the next few days, we are just a week to the 2019 budget. It is an essential budget because of a series of reasons that we'll be laying out for you tonight on the show. Today is the first in a series of conversations we'll be having in a lead up to the 2019 budget, which will be read by this man, Finance Minister Ken Ofori-Atta, next week, Thursday. And that is why tonight we're having the first in the series, Weak or Strong Fundamentals. This analysis and assessment will be done with a man who just a couple of years back was going to Parliament, by this time preparing also to read the same budget. So he'll be giving us his assessment on this all-important question. You need the fundamentals to be strong so you can, I guess, put forward a strong budget that will reflect in people's pockets. And that is a conversation we're going to have tonight. And one of the key things that we're going to be looking out for in the 2019 budget that is about to be read is this budget, the forthcoming budget, 2019 budget, is this budget. That is the budget that possibly will take us out of IMF. And that is why there's a big question mark we are adding to this. Because in 2019, remember, our deal with the IMF is supposed to come to an end. But if you read the IMF assessment recently that was done, I think in September, it tells us that it's not a foregone conclusion that we can end it because there are strict targets that we need to meet. And so, but this budget, the 2019 budget, is this budget that will take us out of the IMF program? And guess what? The man in the studio is a man who took us to the IMF, and so he has a lot to say about this. So we'll ask him about whether the 2019 budget can take us out of the IMF program. Big question mark. And then obviously, another key reason why this 2019 budget is fascinating. This picture here gives you a clue. Because the budget that heralds the 2020 elections. In 2019, will just be a year before the 2020 elections. This budget will herald that. And this means a lot because if you get the 2019 budget wrong, it means a lot for the incumbent government because you need, in 2019, you can no longer play around. You must get it right because you're going into an election year. This is a budget that does that for us. And so it'll be fascinating to explore what this means as far as going into the election season is concerned. Now, this will give you a clue what we're going to be talking about here. We need to be striking a balance between the revenue and then expenditure. This is a major thing because if we are to exit the IMF program, the IMF has told us in September that this is going to be key, striking the balance between expenditure and revenue. Revenue is a big deal for this government. We've fallen short of it. I think in the last budget we saw that was a big deal. But expenditure, they had it under control. What will the 2019 budget do to this? Can it strike this perfect balance? We don't know. We'll try and learn about it very shortly. And are we going to see new revenue measures introduced? If you're striking the balance between how much you're expending and how much you're bringing in, one of the key things you'll be looking at is what do we do to rake in more revenue? Are we going to see more revenue measures? I don't know, but that's something that we'll be having conversations on in the coming days as we build up to the budget. Tax. Are we going to have new taxes? It's a key thing everybody's speculating about. Are we going to have new taxes? One of the key things, Seteka will tell you, and we'll put some of his quotes that he's done in the past when he was a finance minister. He says, you cannot deal with a challenge economy without introducing fresh taxes. So will this government do that? Essentially, when the government had campaigned in 2016, and listen, some of the taxes that we had imposed, that the government then had imposed, were nuisance taxes. So what would they do to raise revenue? Would they introduce new taxes? We don't know. Funding. Now, this is, remember, the budget that heralds the election. And so some of the highly costly policies will have to be funded, right? And remember, free SHS in full with exclamation mark. In 2019, all the 3 years would have come on board. And so government will have to now put money in to fund it. And of course, a lot of the money, we need far more than this, really, to fund it. Now, let's talk about some of the key ticket items. New regions, 1D, 1F, constituency, one constituency, $1 million, one village, one dam. All of these will have to be funded in the 2019 budget. But the most important question that we will be asking is this question. Most importantly, feel the numbers in our pockets. Can the 2019 budget finally deliver this? Stay with us here on PM Express. We'll be introducing my guests and the conversation will be on the road. Former Finance Minister Setekwa is my guest on PM Express tonight. Mr. Setekwa, thank you very much for joining us on PM Express. Yeah. 2 years ago, I remember I was in Parliament when you were, I'm sure by this time, and almost all of you seem to do it on a Thursday. I don't know why Thursday seemed to be the thing. All the budgets are covered when you were reading. Happens to be on a Thursday, but I'm sure you'll be in a room with your team trying to put the finishing touches. We know this is going to go to Cabinet tomorrow, and I mean, the 2019 budget. Yeah. We're going to go to Cabinet tomorrow, fine-tune it, etc. And I know a lot happens leading into Thursday. What would you be doing typically by this time, preparing for such a big budget, a budget that will herald an election year?
Well, thank you very much, and good evening to the viewers. What you would normally do going into, actually you have 2 years to the budget. This is the penultimate budget, and then the 20. What cannot be presented is the budget going into 2021. So obviously you have the elections in view, and Ghana is known to bust the budgets during election years, and maybe we can talk about this. We attempted to do something about this. Some misrepresentation came along with the effort, which we can discuss. But I think this is something which, as a nation, we need to, to tackle and understand. And you have already pointed to the challenges that are going to come going into, 2020, particularly with respect to 2019, 2020, financial year. But you would also be finalizing the document. At this point, it ought to be finalized. And you'll be focusing on maybe the budget speech, which is
what you deliver on the floor.
What you deliver on the floor.
Okay.
But I can say with certainty that by now the budget document itself. Remember, we were told cabinet met already, so this is going to be just a final brush taking into account comments that have been made. Yeah. But it's a long process.
It's a long process.
People, yes,
and a very key one. Yeah. Let's go straight into it. Let's go straight into it because there's a lot of ground to cover tonight. So let's go straight into it. The question we asked, I want to start with that because we're asking weak or strong fundamentals. Without that, you won't have anything to talk about. And let's talk about your assessment of 2018 because 2018 will have to provide the platform for 2019. If you fail to get 2018 correct as far as the economy is concerned, 2019 is going to be even more difficult. Your assessment of the economy in 2018, how this government has performed, your verdict, what's your verdict?
Well, I'm on record as having said that the economy could have performed better.
Why do you say that?
Well, I mean, we should look at the backdrop. I wouldn't want to go that far back, but we were a country that's rebased in 2010 and then started exporting crude oil in 2011. Yeah. The fundamentals, as you talk about, as a result of that, period between 2013, 2011 through 2014, were quite good. During that period, we were able to put sufficient buffers from oil, in place, for a rainy day. But come 2015, and we all know it, whilst the global economy was recovering, the BRIC countries, that's the emerging countries, virtually demand, collapse in those countries, and it had a ripple effect. Crude oil prices, in particular, fell. We had done the budget with 99 dollars, per barrel, and we were looking at $45, per barrel. We were just coming out of Doomsor, which I think we all forget that Doomsor, the main cause of Doomsor was a breach of the pipeline, by the pirate ship, which disrupted us, the flow of gas.
That was highly disputed. That was one of the causes. It wasn't the main cause, was it? It was financial.
Well, by the time, I don't understand the financial.
Because remember, at that time, we also had Ghana Gas hold a press conference and you owed them.
No, well,
that's a key part of the problem.
Well, remember, when you have a disruption, you must secure the economy. And we were buying crude at a very high price, 110, for VRA, and passing on subsidy before. So if you talk about the financial, those are the elements. Yes, they added to it, but they are consequence of the disruption. If you had a disruption, if you didn't have that disruption, we didn't have to go and buy crude at 110, when gas was relatively cheap. So I think that is but I'm just, giving you the background that there were domestic factors and there were external factors falling simultaneous. Cocoa, gold, and then crude oil, fell simultaneously. Crude prices, collapsed. And we had to go to Parliament in 2015 and in 2016 election year to trim the budget. I think people forget that. A bold thing to do, going into an election year because of the same election year, busting of the budget. Fast forward, crude prices have gone up, about doubled. It's slid down, a bit.
Yeah. Earnings in gold, cocoa, everything is going up.
It's gone up. Yeah. Above all, we have Tenfield, oil and gas. We have Sankofa, oil and gas topping Jubilee. And this is the background to what I keep saying, that the economy ought to be doing better. And it's not me saying it here. You remember the World Bank had forecast already in 2016 that Ghana was, going into a very robust, era. Yeah. And so,
but that's the same World Bank and the IMF applaud this government for doing some fantastic work. In fact, if you read the latest IMF report I was just picking up in April, external sector improved, the cedi remained stable, while the foreign reserves rose. And 2017 data shows substantial narrowing of the current account deficit due to large surplus in the trade balance and higher private transfers. Trade balance improved in surplus equivalent to 2.3% of GDP at the end of 2017. Current account deficit narrowed to, and you read all that. This is a government that is doing well by all accounts.
No, the point I'm saying is that, as I use the expression, could have done better.
They have done better, but you think they could do more?
No, I'm saying that, please, I said that these things you have said were projected. Yeah. Yes, the government has held them up, and we are performing better. Some of the projections are lower. If you went back to the, some of the performance is lower than the projections.
Let's nail it. When you say done better, you're quite an economist. Growth rate. You're doing 8% projected.
Yeah, we're supposed to have done, better. Yes, 8%.
So specifically, if we are doing 8% now,
you are taking the headline.
How much better can they get?
No, excuse me, you are taking the headline. What you have to do is to look at the components of growth. And it's both in the main, it is crude oil, which is driving petroleum. If you look at the other sectors, they are flat. And that means that, there isn't enough investment going into the real sector of the economy as a result of the excessive, resources going into consumption. And therefore, it has not helped. So we could have been doing, probably, remember we were talking about Tenfield, Sankofa, larger crude, topping Jubilee. Back in 2011, we were doing 14%. I mean, remember.
2011. Precisely. Fastest growing economy in the world.
Yeah, with just one. And that is because, in addition to the crude oil, we had a strategy for investments in the real sector, which you would agree, infrastructure and others.
So this government at this rate should be doing what?
I don't.
I wanted to put a figure to it. We are at 8%.
No, it should be speculative because
you see, but when you say they could do more, we need to hold it to something specific.
I've given you the relative.
Yeah,
I've done something relative.
I get to understand.
Yes. So
I just want specific because you're dealing with specifics.
No, that's why. Please.
But then that becomes a bit vague. You can't hold on to.
No. On what basis am I going to say?
On the basis you just mentioned, all the things that is happening for them. Gold prices going up, oil prices going up.
No, please.
Making a lot of revenue from all that.
No, please. If I say 16%, what's the context? If I say the economy should have been performing, it will depend on the investments that would have been done. And I've gone back and I'm saying that with one oil field compared to 3, with crude oil prices, recovering, not going down, we are seeing the main investments which took place in terms of partial risk guarantee and the, showing results. Those were the investments that were made because it takes time for this, and I'm saying the other sectors of the economy that should have further lifted the, the economy to higher growth.
But you can't tell me how much higher.
No, but they're flat. So the point, and I'm giving you a context, and I'm saying that, back in those days, well, I would have expected, if you want to be, I would have expected the economy to perform better than 2011.
But in 2011, we were doing
14%. After rebasing, it was around 11%.
Okay,
so we ought to, and I'm saying that you are looking.
So the 2018 economy should be growing at a faster rate than 14%.
Yeah, possibly, but of course, GDP after the rebasing, in fairness, had increased, and therefore, probably we should be doing, something in the region of, 12, 13% if the real sector of the economy, had, provided the fillip that was needed. But those sectors are flat. I mean, the figures are there. But I think, Ivan, the point I'm making is, yes, that is the answer to that. And I have, given you reasons why True. I think it should be.
So question.
And that means, therefore, what we have to watch, right, is that Ghana is moving into a period of consumption, spending, right, and it's leading to a stagnation in the real sectors of the economy. We are not seeing much investments going into that, and that is what could harm because we've capped statutory funds, we are diverting them into consumption, right? We've taken, or it is, if you listen to what PIAC and others are saying, we seem to have taken our revenues that I pointed out last year, and moving them away from the investment portion of ABFA into the recurrent portion. If ABFA, when you
but
consume,
the IMF has told us in this report that government is doing well with expenditure.
It's relative. With expenditure, when I
relative to what exactly?
No, what I mean, let's talk about expenditure. I think I'm recorded again as saying that I believe that something odd happened between 2016 and 2017, where 2016 figures approved by Parliament were adjusted, which shouldn't have been the case, where for the first time we saw commitments, which was the 7 billion we were said to have left as arrears, being shown above the line, where there should have been a cash item, which is a clear offset of the 7 billion, and then you move into 2017 budget and it's zero. You couldn't have cleared 7 billion, what, did you clear it in 2016 to become, zero in 2017? It means that, then the deficit was lower. And that is because I think that is a very simple explanation. If you say Setokwe left 7 billion, you would have to pay 7 billion in 2017. And then you find yourself, faced with that. So you can look at the numbers, and I challenge anybody to look at the numbers and tell us.
And the beauty of something we'll be doing shortly is that we'll look at the numbers shortly. Let's go. So final question before we move on this introductory comment. So 2019 budget is coming next week. Direct question: are the fundamentals weak or strong, based on all that we've just talked about?
Some fundamentals are strong. If you take petroleum sector, we just said it. When you talk about fundamentals, let's take the real sector. So energy sector, on account of, Sankofa 10, Jubilee, crude oil prices, you can say are strong, which ought to translate into better, again, forex, because it's also the portion that comes to government. But we've seen the city, wobble until the cocoa, revenues came in. The financial sector, we all know, is going through, challenges. If you take the budget itself, revenue is facing challenges. You just said it in your introduction, and expenditures are going up. And these are the vulnerabilities.
So are the fundamentals weak or strong?
I'm saying that I've given you, I've gone
I
through
understand
the
what you're saying. I
fundamentals.
understand
Yes.
it. Where are you tilting
But
towards
even,
based on your analysis and assessment? I wanted to move on to some other areas, but I just wanted to, because this is important for the 2019.
I've just given you the, let me repeat them quickly.
Yeah.
I've given you the elements of the fundamentals. Okay?
I get it. So put a full stop to it for me. Based on that assessment, what's your conclusion?
Well, the conclusion is that whereas you have, on account of Jubilee 10 and the energy sector is strong, the others,
And
the
strong.
numbers are speaking for themselves.
Okay, so
They
where are
also
you
strong.
tilting? If I give you a
Well, it
spectrum?
goes back to my summary that it ought to have performed better. GRA should have, been performing better in terms of revenue.
So we can say,
as a result
we can
of
say that the
distortion
fundamentals aren't bad after all.
Well, it could be better. That's
Yeah,
the point
but
I'm
it
making.
doesn't mean that it's bad.
Well,
either.
I'm not here to say.
I get it.
No,
I think I understand.
Let
you.
me make a very important point.
Yeah.
We made significant investments,
Yeah.
even when I just said the global economy was going down. Ghana avoided a recession. Don't forget. Some countries in strong economies are still in recession, and they're trying to get out of. I have also said that the projection was that the economy was going to do well. So I'm not about to say that.
The
those
Economic Intelligence
fundamentals,
Unit, all the indicators and World Global Analysts all said in 2018,
all said it was
2017, going
it
forward,
was all going to do well.
Exactly.
Do so I am not going to fault my own work and the work of
but
my
we'll scrutinize your work.
Yes.
We will scrutinize some of your work. But let's talk about some of the, again, because in the context of 2019 budget being the budget that heralds the 2020 election season, one of the key things that the 2019 budget will be looking for is how it funds some of the key budget items, particularly the free SHS. And because the free SHS in 2019, all the three streams would have come on board. And remember that already we spent 553 million cedis just for this current one. And so imagine what's going to happen when we are going to have all the streams, the first, second, and third years on board. Mr. Tekba, you're on record to have said that it's not sustainable.
Is it? From the record.
What's your reason?
Well, remember that those promises were made against the background, two major assertions. We are going to increase revenue. We know how to increase revenue. We can finance, the promises. Above all, we are not going to borrow to finance those promises. So if today we are borrowing, and if today we are struggling with revenue, it's leading to fiscal unsustainability. Because what it means is, therefore, is that you are adding expenditures that did not exist, right? And it's crowding out existing expenditures. And therefore, one of the things I'm going to be watching is, and I predict that the allocation to capital budget will go down further. Because as I said, there's a lot that's going into
on the free SHS.
On the free SHS. Secondly, we just said a moment ago, and the evidence was there. It's clear in appendix, to the budgets last year, that we took oil revenue, moved it from capital to recurrent to support free SHS. It's there. It was stated quite clearly. We capped Get Fund. We capped, NHI. We capped anything in IGFs and everything. Where did they go? They went into free SHS. So it's showing you, the burden, by year 2 of free SHS, and you mentioned year 3. But don't forget year 4, because year 4 is moving all that numbers and expenditures into tertiary.
Yeah.
And I think this is something, we are debating free SHS, right? But we should be looking beyond, because unlike, for example, single spine, which faced us as a nation, single spine had 2 components. The first one, which could be catered through productivity, additional revenue increases and whatever, was the salary increase itself. The one we had to battle with for 3 years were the arrears. But the arrears at one time, when you pay them, they go off. Unlike free SHS, unlike the expenditure. Don't get me wrong. Don't get me wrong. I did say that I went to school on scholarship. I went to school, tuition free and everything. So, I mean, it's a program that's popular. So don't get me wrong.
But it's not sustainable financially.
I'm giving you the trajectory.
Reasons,
yes. So you are going to move, so we shouldn't end the discussion of free SHS in 2019, 2020 academic year. Because, as I said, you are moving that numbers into, the tertiary. And so in terms of expansion, double track in the tertiary.
There'll be a spillover.
Is that what we, certainly, have we built infrastructure? We are only, it's going to, even we are not building education infrastructure. And so that's the problem I'm saying. And if you look at it, the fact that it is crowding out, and what we mean crowding out is the capping is taking money from other areas into free areas. That's what I mean by it's not fiscally sustainable. But it isn't that, it isn't that as a political promise you would move heaven and earth, to make sure that the kids go to school and everything, But then... But
that's what governments are supposed to do. And Mr. Tech, but the numbers...
No, wait a minute. I think that, these are the reasons you talk about the election year and that. And in some countries, and maybe we should be, that's why we did the Public Financial Management Act and all that. And in conjunction with what I said, maybe the nation should be moving towards, let me give you a prime example, what you called funded mandates. There are countries where, yes, you can, if you say you are going to raise, expenditure to meet certain commitments, you should raise the expenditure, and it must be funded.
Yeah.
And the prime example, the prime example is the Mexico wall is not built because the U.S. has funded.
But let's stay in Ghana because there's funding for free SHS. I've just been doing the numbers. Total revenue, and remember, I'm just basing this on government's own declared source of funding for the free SHS, which is the oil revenue. Total revenue from oil in 2017 amounted to $540 million. Now, that is some $2.5 billion in just 2017.
So
CDs.
Can we take them one by one?
This is important.
Don't load them.
So I'm not loading them. I'm just converting. This is I'm talking about $540 million in 2017 alone, which is something in the region of 2.5 billion CDs in 2017 alone. The year in which, and this is important, the year in which oil prices as of December ending was $60 a barrel. Now, going into
compared to $38.
I'm making a point.
No, compared to $38.
I'm making a point. Going into 2019, where the budget is going to be relevant, the U.S. bank JP Morgan is projecting that crude oil prices will average $70 a barrel, which is that it's going to go up. What that means is that we're going to get more money from oil in 2019 going forward. Ghana will get more from the oil, more than the 2.5 billion cedis, more than the 2.5 billion cedis that we currently are getting. Even if free SHS budget jumps, significantly higher than the 453 million that we are talking about currently, this leaves a significant more to fund it. If you're relying on oil alone, based on this analysis, and so there is definitely more money there to fund.
You have a Petroleum Revenue Management Act.
Yeah.
And the Petroleum Revenue Management Act, we all 1.5 years, I believe that you were, still a top journalist.
Yeah, you have to prioritize.
Remember, no, wait a minute, please. We went to conference center, we said this is what we want as a nation, right? We want to use the petroleum revenue to stabilize the budget. That's a stabilization fund. We want to put some aside for the heritage fund. We want to set some aside in the ABFA, for recurrent expenditure and for capital expenditure. That you can use. We prioritize education, and it's,
and government has prioritized.
Yes, it did prioritize education, which is in its right to do, right? We created sinking fund to take our bonds and everything. If it was sustainable, why are you raiding, some of those revenues to pay for free SHS? Why don't you stick to the mandate of the PRMA, which we did with one oil field and with, the global economy? It tells you there's something wrong with it. And I already said that the budget shows that the 70 times 70% that should have gone into infrastructure, even a Greek infrastructure, in addition to, it didn't even go into education infrastructure. It went into education recurrent. So I'm saying that, yes, we all knew, point one, we all knew that we were going to get oil revenue. It's not new, right? Because we invested in some of it. We invested in, so you are just preaching to the...
But this government is getting far more.
No, please, I'm saying you are preaching. That's why they ought not be raiding, to meet their...
no, but if they're getting far more, then they have far more money to fund free SHS.
My question is, I'm saying that we have the law.
Yeah.
So why raid sinking fund? Why raid the others? Yeah. When you have more revenue, it only shows that. No, it only shows that. Remember, it's not one-sided.
Okay.
What causes the misallocation is the fact that you are getting revenue, yes, but your expenditure is overbloated and it's higher.
Yeah. Although we all agree
revenue
from the IMF and others that the expenditure, they're keeping it on the taps.
Please read the IMF. Let's be careful.
Yeah.
Let's read the IMF report on the caution on expenditures.
Yeah, I have it.
Yeah, it is there.
I have it here. I'll quote from Mr. Sekwe.
Yes.
We're going to go into another area very shortly, which is debt. Remember that the former President John Mahama, the man who makes Sekwe his finance minister, had said recently, very controversially, that the current government should apologize for borrowing excessively. He claims 50 billion and show the evidence for it, because when they were in opposition, they had claimed that they won't borrow, and that borrowing is a lazy man's job, way of fixing problems. So we're interrogating that. And also this very controversial 50 billion century bond that has become such a topical matter. What is Mr. Tekpe's take on this? And does he stand by his former boss that Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo should apologize? Going into the 2019 budget, though, how is government going to deal with the debt issue? That's what we'll be interrogating when we return. Stay with us here on PM Express. So, yeah, the former president, John Dramani Mahama, stirs a lot of controversy, claiming that the government should simply explain to us why they've been borrowing so excessively. When they were in opposition, they had criticized his government for borrowing without, slowing down, so to speak. Well, if you see on the screen here, it tells you a story. And Mr. Tekpe is here with me. And these are his slides, by the way. You wanted to make a point with this, Mr. Tekpe?
Well, I wanted to let Ghanaians appreciate when we talk about the issue of, debt. And we start from the episode of 2000. And as you can see, as we move, towards 2006. 2006. You see the dip. Okay. This is the total.
So this is how much we've borrowed over the years. So this shows us the graph.
As a percentage of GDP. GDP, yes. So it dipped, and this is HIPIC. Debt forgiveness. Yeah. After HIPIC, the debt starts climbing. Now you can see that even though this side is flat because we have rebase. Yeah. Sorry. Okay, so we'll have to go back at a point, but yes. Go. Sorry, yes. We're talking about this. Yeah. So even with the rebasing effect and whatever, of course the values are, but you can see clearly, that, and at this point, without rebasing, we were already at risk of the default. True. And this is why, if you are looking at the nominal has so many factors: redenomination, rebasing, and others, growth and whatever. So if we move to so you see the nominal, goes up. This is a percentage of GDP. This is actually the nominal. Okay. That is just going up. Okay, yes. Now, you see this. What are we looking at here? Exactly. This is the public debt as a percentage of GDP. And this is what the controversy really is. This is what. So you see that why the nominal appear to be because the value, remember there's a foreign component. Yeah. And the value of the cedi was stronger. Yeah. And then it kept depreciating. But this shows you, a slightly different picture in terms of GDP. This is where we were when we declared HIPIC. Okay. So we went through all the processes. We went to a low of 2006. In fact, it fell from about 53% to about 28%. 28% of GDP. Of GDP. And then it kept increasing. Slightly. This is your tenure. So you can see that you were deputy from which period? From 2009. 2009, okay. In 2009, we started climbing. We started borrowing more. With the climbing strategy. We'll go to the rate of growth. Yes. You see. We started climbing gradually. Actually, by 2009, you can see there's a... Yeah, no. Let's go. By 2009, there was a slight flattening that is taking place. Then it kept going up, through 2013. And then you can see the flattening. It's flattened. It's flattened. Jet to GDP. And when it flattens, it means that you are slowing down the rate of growth of the debt. And that shows in the next... Yeah, next slide that we are going to look at. Yes, so this is the change. Okay. So you see that at the point we got HIPIC, actually the rate of growth went negative because our debt was forgiven and everything. Then it shot up immediately after. Yeah. I should be careful. It shot up immediately after, after HIPIC. After HIPIC. And then went down because of MDR, that is the multilateral debt relief and others. Then it started climbing, and this is when the alarm came. Yeah. So you could see that. But this is you, by the way. Well, no, it's 2013. Yes, but you were the... Yeah, I was the deputy. Yes, of course. Yes. But please, let's look at the rate of growth. It shot up here, came down, and it kept going up. So by 2009, it was already going.
Yeah, but that is the highest we got.
We got to the
in
peak.
2013, yes.
Yes, but at this point, this is when we introduced the smart borrowing. You can see the decline.
Smart borrowing.
Yes.
That is what is controversial.
Now, so you see but you see the effect of
and then it started
the rate
dipping.
of growth. Yes.
This is,
now,
so you took over as finance minister substantively between what 2014?
I don't like to dissociate myself. I was a deputy.
I get it.
So, yes.
I get it. I mean, but substantively, you were the man in charge when?
Precisely. Yes, from 2013.
2013.
You know, and it got to the peak, and we said we needed to do something more.
So what you said, what this is showing to us, and in simple terms, is that our borrowing debt to GDP started dropping.
No, the rate at which
you're increasing the debt started dropping. And it went into what? Negative.
It went into negative.
In 2016.
2015, 2016.
And it's climbing again under this government.
And that is the point.
Okay, I want to.
And this is the point.
Stay within this.
This is the point. Yes. You know, President Mahama, you know, is
making.
About. Because remember, it's not him who is saying it. I think that the audio and everything is there.
No, but he said it. He said it.
Yeah, he called for that. He called for the apology. Yes. Right? He did call for the apology.
But is the apology justified though? Because I have here statistics from the World Bank, and this is April 19, 2018, right? And they say the debt to GDP ratio as estimated, and this is the previous slide that we looked at 69.2 in December 2017, right? And it says down from 73.4 in 2016.
Remember, Evans, we were
reflecting, and this is important, reflecting a slowdown in the rate of external debt accumulation.
Exactly. But we were achieving this at the time the global economy itself was down. We were achieving this at the, remember we are talking about rate of growth in relation to GDP.
Yes.
Achieving this at the time, you know, domestic issues. Achieving this when growth itself was going down. Why are we going up? When growth is going up. Why are we going up? When we have Sankofa. Why are we going up? When we have Tenfield. Why are we going up? You know, when GDP.
But hard facts show that you borrowed debt to GDP was significantly less in 2017 under this current government than you were.
No. Wait a minute. This is where it peaked. The rate of growth is going down. And remember, I'm saying that we've done a rebasing, just as we did a rebasing around 2010 here.
Yes.
Right? So we did a rebasing. So there's a benefit of rebasing. There's a benefit of the base, the GDP, increasing. Right? We were just going through the numbers. And I'm saying that at the time this was going down, the GDP was going down, not going up.
The GDP is going up.
No.
Now.
I'm saying that it's going up.
Now.
And yet still the rate of growth is going up. You know, because if you are looking at the GDP...
No, but if that argument you're making is what it is, what we're seeing here, this is growth rate we had in 2011, and I don't know if you can see this, was the highest in Ghana's history.
I am not.
And yet the rate was there.
No. This is the rate of growth.
That's the point I'm making. Yes. I'm talking about 2011.
Yes.
You were at 14% growth rate.
Yes, but you see the flattening here. You see a slight flattening.
That's what
wait a minute. This is the effect. Yes, but this is the effect. The point I'm making, you know, Evans, is that...
But you get my point also.
No, but the graph is speaking for itself. I'm not disputing.
You're making a point about the fact that if it's going up here, and yet growth is going up in 2017, why is that? So, and I'm pointing you to 2011 when we had 14% growth rate, and yet you were there.
No, so Evans, if the economy were growing today at 12%, not 14 and whatever, better than, you wouldn't be having this, you know, growth going up. You wouldn't have the rate of growth going up, right? Because at a time when even the economy was soft in terms of global economy and all the shocks that we're going through, other countries were going into recession, we managed to put together a debt management program that started to slow down the rate of growth of the debt. And you cannot reduce debt until you slow down its rate of growth. Okay. And I'm saying that the important thing is we are talking about the trajectory going forward. And we see the trajectory going forward here, and we are going to get the 2018 budget, you know, and the rebasing and everything. Yes, and we'll do further analysis. And we are going to see...
Final question. At this rate, approach me again. Yes. At this rate, is this sustainable? Is this government handling the debt situation the way it should?
Well, it ought to be better, and that's the point I'm making.
It ought to be better.
Yeah, we should be offering around 69, you know, 70%. Remember, we were criticized for, you know, crossing the 70%.
So this government deserves all the criticism they are getting from your side?
No, you're talking about 3.6%. No, they don't. You're talking about 3.
They don't deserve the criticism. They deserve the criticism.
They deserve the criticism. Of course, they do, yes.
Okay.
Because remember, this rate of growth without borrowing should have been flat, zero. Right? That's the point President Mahama is making. That's the point we must understand. That if the capability or the ability to raise our revenue and not accumulate the rate of growth, they wouldn't be adding to debt. It wouldn't be increasing. It would be flat, zero. That is the assessment we have to make.
Okay.
And that is the judgment, which we are making. And I have said that it's a humbling experience.
But we're in the 60s to GDP. We are not in anywhere close to where you were.
The discussions, no,
almost
that is not the issue. Your question was, is President Mahama justified? President Mahama,
you say he's justified.
President Mahama did not say that we were not going to borrow.
Okay.
Right? So and we built infrastructure. We borrow, we built infrastructure.
They're doing free SHS. You said the free SHS is costing a lot. They're doing free SHS. That's costing them a lot.
But we did it without capping statutory funds. We did it, I expressed the intention of capping those funds, but you use it within the sector. Right? But we did all this without capping statutory funds. We did it without taking oil revenue.
You insist Nana Ado must apologize still.
The judgment has to get ends.
No, but your former boss said it. You support it.
Of course, yes.
That Nana Ado should apologize.
I myself have said that it's a humbling experience.
For the NDC?
Yes, for the NPP.
So they must apologize. You expect your friend, respect your friend, Ken Oforiatta, to apologize.
I didn't make the promise not to borrow.
So you expect him to apologize?
I did not make the promise not to borrow.
I get it, but you expect him to apologize.
I know you want a soundbite.
No, I don't want a soundbite. I'm asking a question. Do you expect him to apologize or not?
Well, it's up to him.
But
if they told Ghanaian, please.
It's up to him, but do you expect him to or not?
No, I'm saying...
You think he misled Ghanaians?
Listen. I am not making the assessment. The audio is
clear.
You
are making the assessment.
No. The audio is clear.
No, but you are making the assessment. Based on your assessment.
I am telling you
based on your assessment, you expect Ken, your friend, to apologize next week Thursday.
Well, isn't it the humble thing to do? Isn't it the most judicious? If you said that you were not going to borrow, right? And you are borrowing. And that is what, President Mahama is saying.
So the humble thing to do is apologize and let's move on.
Yeah.
Stay with me. We're going to take a short break. When we return, we're going to be delving into a very important part of the conversation. There are people already speculating that you can expect more taxes next week. We'll be dealing with that. Stay with us. PMS was live on the JoyNews channel. Setekwe is still my guest in the studio. Mr. Setekwe, next week, there's some who fear that if you read all the IMF reports, and this is critical to exiting the IMF program you brought us into. The IMF says in all the reports I've seen, in fact, I want to quote you what after the assessment was done, what the IMF said. Growth prospects remain strong, supported by robust oil and cocoa production. But this is the key. The IMF said after the review that on this basis, achieving end December fiscal targets hinges on strengthening both expenditure discipline and tax compliance beyond measures adopted in the mid-year budget. That means this government, if it has to exit the IMF program, need to meet this all-important task. They have to strike that balance which we introduced earlier. Do you expect them to introduce new tax measures next week?
No, wait a minute. I think that the decision to go into an IMF program and to exit is basically for the authorities. Okay. So you can make a decision.
But there are hard targets they need to make to exit.
Well, no.
They can't just get up and say, I'm going.
No, but you can exit. Even if you had no, you can exit. It only means that you haven't met your targets.
Yeah. But
the world will know. No, the world will know that you didn't meet your targets. And financial markets will know that you didn't meet your targets.
Investors will know.
Yes, but I'm saying
credibility won't be there.
Yes, but the point I'm making is that it is up to us. It's our sovereign right to enter. IMF programs are demand-driven. That's what they say.
Would you advise the government to exit?
I think I've written on it already.
Tell me what you think.
No, what I said was that we should take an intermediate step, towards exiting. The IMF has other programs. You can say, I'm not doing an IMF program, but I have my own program. You can come and monitor it. We call it, that's what Kenya is doing. And Rwanda and others, you call it the policy support instrument. So they come and give you an assessment. And you reserve the right to go to the IMF, for assistance. The thing about the program is that you are doing the program when you are also asking for assistance. So every assessment, comes with a dose of, forex supply to stabilize the balance of payment situation. So if we do not meet these targets, for example, then it means that IMF may come to the judgment that we don't, deserve to get that tranche, of money, because it is resource-based. But let's get it clear. The issue about exiting an IMF program, right? You can do it when the economy is strong or when the economy is growing. Despite the expenditures and everything, and despite the expenditures and everything. Yeah. But you need the IMF most because it's a lender of last resort. Okay. When the next shocks come, okay. You know, and when your gold, cocoa, crude oil prices fall, begin to fall, right? And you need a buffer. And by the way, we are not building the buffers from the petroleum revenues. We are taking them out. And therefore, when, you know, because by the time we were leaving office, we had about 800 million, you know, US dollars. We had used about 500 million to take off the 2007 bond, okay. Which was issued, right, without default, without any fuss, right? Those funds and other things are being depleted today. So we are, as a result of the expenditure overruns, we are depleting even our buffers. Okay. Or we are likely to be depleting our buffers. Yeah.
So what should happen with the IMF program now? You know, your expert opinion.
Well, I don't know, the government has made a commitment to exit. Mine is just a caution. No, I can't tell the government not to exit.
So caution means use an intermediate program?
Yes, that's
but stay with the IMF?
Remember, we are exiting IMF programs. We are not exiting membership of the IMF.
Should we...
Wait a minute.
That's a good difference.
Yes. Now, what does that mean? That means that every member of the IMF has to open its books anyway. Under Article 4. Okay. So what's the difference? IMF will come and make the same assessment.
Whether you're in the program or not.
Yes, under Article 4. They will come and make the assessment. Okay. And they will tell the Ghanaians. So this is where you have to be of good behavior. This is where you need to have stronger policies.
I wanted to reduce what you're saying into layman's terms. If I'm not getting it right, correct me. So what you want government to do is, when April comes, you can exit the program.
Yeah, you are exiting the program.
I exit the program.
That's the ECF.
Yes, but commit to allow the IMF regularly, as you always do.
No, it's just a recommendation. I'm saying it's an intermediate step to test our ability to manage our own affairs. Okay. And I'm saying there are other African countries that are doing just that. But the reminder I'm giving to Ghanaians is that if you exit an IMF program, you have it, compare Brexit. UK is leaving the EU as a member of the EU. Yes. UK is not saying I'm opting not to do this and that program.
I get what you're saying.
And by virtue of being a member of the IMF, the same examination will be done.
So in other words, we won't die if we leave. We'll just stay with the IMF still because we are obliged to stay anyway because we are members. And then they'll come and do what they do.
Well, it's not just come and do what they do because their report is going to be looked at by the financial markets, donors and others. And remember, when we attempted to do homegrown policies and we were hit by, you know, single spine, doomsaw and whatever, one of the reasons we had to go into the IMF was the homegrown policy was our policy which we wanted to initiate, right? The reason we had to go was, you know, the result of those shocks. Okay. And we had to go in because then they picked the signals and they stopped budget support. Not just the fund, but other DPs. The markets become, you know, wobbly.
Mr. Tekpe, I want to wrap up this conversation with the chances of the NDC in 2020.
Well, you were going to talk about taxes.
I asked you about taxes.
Yes, the taxes have not gone away.
So my fundamental question is: do you expect new taxes? But briefly, because I don't.
I'm saying that even if we don't expect new taxes, one, you know, capping and things are taking place in lieu of that. Some taxes have been increased already, you know, on vehicles and whatever. So it's been done ahead of the game. Okay. You know.
But you don't expect new ones next week.
Well, we'll wait for the budget, you know, and see because the expenditure. Pardon?
You don't have any expectations on the taxes?
If you are not raising revenue, right? If you are not increasing taxes, what next? You have to borrow to finance your expenditures. It's a simple.
That's what you expect will happen. Government will borrow
I'm saying that it's either or.
Okay.
You know, you can't run an economy without.
Well, your final thoughts on that, because I need to ask my final question on the chances of the party, on the taxes.
Well, it's another. I'm saying that the three things that are happening is that the taxes we introduced, which were to expire, which we have done in the past,
continue.
They are remaining. Yeah. And then new taxes have been increased, and the possibility of either increasing taxes or increasing, you know, borrowing to meet the high expenditure. If we are not willing to reduce the expenditure.
You feel that's a vindication of your position in the past on taxes? Because your position is you can't do this without.
Of course, we're looking at the expenditure.
Is that a vindication of your position?
Well, we've been vindicated on many points already.
And this is one of them?
This is one of them.
Okay, finally, the chances of the NDC in 2020. What's your
positive? It's bright.
It's bright.
Yes.
Chances of John Mahama.
But of course, you know, we don't have to be complacent. We have to work for it.
What makes it bright? If in one word, what makes it so bright?
The graph is telling you that even at our worst, you know, we were able to, you know, to do a number of things. And by the way,
so the NDC is coming back in 2020. That's what you're saying?
Yes, certainly.
Certainly. Yes. Is John Mahama the one leading you?
John Mahama is the front runner the way by my assessment.
And he will win the primary.
He's the front runner.
You are voting for him, obviously.
Everybody's vote is meant to be silent.
Including yourself, you're voting for him.
Everybody's vote is meant to be silent.
It's meant to be secret.
Yes, yeah.
Mr. Tekpe, I'm grateful. We need to have you here again after the budget.
We'll see.
Yes, I'm grateful that you joined us.
Commitments.
There's a lot more to go. And if you have Mr. Tekpe for any conversation, there'll be far more left unaddressed than what you address, and there's far more that we still need to be interrogating. Next week, Thursday, the budget will be read, and we'll go knocking on his door again. Now we'll know the details. All the things he said tonight, we'll see which of the apostles he gave us passed and
Most of them will materialize.
Most of them will materialize. Okay, you heard it. We'll see what happens next week, Thursday. My name is Evans Mensah.